silence is the best medicine to avoid stress? Question mark.
Silence.
Ah.
Well, silence is a part of that sadhana, in fact. But silence is, you cannot practice silence 24/7, isn't it? When you interact with the people, it is with all your 5 organs of karmendriya and jnanendriyas. All of them are involved. Silence, yes, silence contributes to that, but silence alone, because sometimes you have to be careful. After a stressful situation, if you become silent, what you are actually doing is you are replaying that stressful situation in your mind and becoming more and more stressed. In fact, you will find it, the fight between the spouses, both will not talk to each other. Both will be silent, right? But both of them are having a high level of stress because of that. So silence, maunam, as I call it, I wouldn't call it silence, because silence has got a lot of meanings. But maunam is the word which we use in Vedantic parlance or Vedantic jargon. Maunam is a very good stress reliever, which is a part of the meditation process, which I mentioned about. So yes, I mean, in one way, silence is there, but silence is not the full solution. Because we have to interact with the world. We can't say, I'm going to be silent.
All right, one more question.
You will see that Mahatmas, they actually observe certain periods of silences, Say for 15 days, they will not talk to anybody and all, they observe silence. So silence does not merely mean that silence of, wordly silence. Even in your thoughts, you should be silent. You must not allow all thoughts to enter your mind. So there also the maunam should be practiced. Sorry. Yeah, please carry on, Dinaji.
No, there was another question. So, no, I'm glad you finished your answer. The other question is, can acceptance when in pain lead to stress-free life?
Sorry, come again.
Can acceptance when in pain lead to stress-free life?
Well, in pain means, I need to understand, is it a physical pain or an emotional pain we are talking about?
Maybe he can unmute himself and just ask you the question.
Yeah, exactly. Whoever
Mr. Sheshagiri.
Hello.
Hello. Mr. Sheshagiri. Yes.
Can you hear me?
His connection is not very good.
Connection is not good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
I think maybe you can answer it for both. Acceptance when in pain can be physical as well as any other pain.
Yeah. See, when there is a physical pain.
Yeah, Ramkumar Sheshagiri. Yeah, Ganapati ji, Hari Om.
Hari Om. Yeah, I think I can't hear you. When there is a physical pain, the question of acceptance is not a very difficult thing, because you are actually focusing only on your pain rather than focusing on accepting somebody's behavior or not. Sometimes it does happen that when you are in physical pain and you find that somebody is indifferent, somebody close to you, intimate to you, is indifferent to your pain, it may cause stress in you. So that aspect is there. But having said that, if you overcome that feeling of frustration that somebody is not paying attention, all that you need to do is understand that that person is not paying attention to your physical pain because of certain background is there. There must be a certain reason for that. Once you understand that reason, and which again, as I said, has to come with practice. It can't be just, you can't start with that kind of a thing. Then the physical pain will remain with you only. And in fact, you will be very careful. In fact, very lot of old people I've seen, they never tell other people about their physical pains because they feel that by other people or the family knowing about their physical pain, they will become stressed, right? So this is something, they keep it a secret. In fact, old people in the family, they will keep it a secret. So physical pain is one aspect of it. So far as emotional pain is concerned, it's very difficult. I mean, when you are already pained by somebody's behavior and you are having an emotional stress and emotional pain, and then you want to superimpose the acceptance of the other person's behavior on that, it's not going to be easy. But in Vedanta dictionary, there is nothing impossible. All that you have to do is, if you have done enough meditation, you will have to, in those circumstances, distance yourself away from the situation, from the pain, and see that this pain is being experienced by whom? Is it being experienced by me, or is it being experienced by the role that I have played, because of which this stress has come to me? If you are able to keep that distance, even though you are having emotional pain, you feel that you have emotional pain, that residence of that emotional pain is not with you, it is with the role. So that's exactly what I gave you the beautiful example of an actor. It may look a little ridiculous, but let us understand, all of us basically are very, very simple, relaxed human beings. That is our Swarupa, as Vedanta, as Upanishad say, Sat Chit Ananda Swarupa, right? That Swarupa is a very relaxed Swarupa. That is what we really are. Everything that we experience, we are superimposing all these roles on that Swarupa, on that simple individual, simple person, and then get into all sorts of problems in our life. But having said that, it requires a lot of practice, it requires a lot of time. If you start today, the best day to start is now. Kal kare so aaj kar, aaj kare so ab. So you can start now. At some stage you will find that you are able to create that distance. And we have seen that it's not just a theory, I mean, all these Mahatmas, I've seen it in my own guru. There are so many Mahatmas we come across. They are able to relate to everybody they come across, without any problem. And they have found the secret formula of creating this distance. So they are very compassionate, they are very loving, and everybody wants to go to them, in fact, isn't it? So this secret you will have to understand, and you will have to practice that. Have I answered your question? I hope. Otherwise, you are my student. You can ask this question tomorrow in the class.
Okay. So one more question. You mentioned to not let external take over you. But over years, our mind is just external baggage, 98%. So how do we distinguish the internal emotions and the external baggage, emotion, thoughts that we have collected over years?
Yes, good question. That's why I said, it's a difficult process, because let us understand, what is your mind? Your mind basically is a very simple, clean slate, right? Over the years, you have written so many things in that mind by all your interactions with the world, right from your childhood, right? You have written so many things on your mind that now it's totally, you yourself cannot make out what is the original state of your mind was. You need to take your mind slowly back to that original state. And that is where meditation is going to help you. And this meditation, exactly when I said guided meditation, it takes you step by step as to how you have to start externalizing one by one the things that you come across. And in fact, the example of the natural, things which I said is the starting point in guided meditation, Vedantic meditation. It's easier one, right? You can externalize all the trees and everything, because they are external and they are not occupying any space in your mind. Very easy. You start with that. And then you start recalling immediate events, what happened yesterday, externalize that. So like that, it's a process. I mean, you can't get through to this in a few days or anything. It's a process. But you start off at some stage, automatically, things will start moving away on their own. So this is the experience. I mean, there is it's not, you can't prove it scientifically, but this is how it is. We are actually saddled with so much baggage. that even to think that this is possible becomes very difficult for us to conceive, right? But it is possible. The same thing is the case with the entire Vedanta. All our problems, the problems of this samsara that we are all suffering, is all because of what? All this baggage, all that over, not only in this birth, from births after births we have done it. In fact, our mind, our Sukshma Sharira is carrying one very big hard disk of our past samskaras. Samskaras of our past births. They also are very, very strong in determining how we behave, how we react to situations in this birth. So it's not a very simple thing. It's a very involved thing. But people have done it. So if we have confidence, we have the resolve, we can also do it. It's not a problem. Abhyasena tu kaunteya. Practice. Vairagyam is required. Dispassionately you must do it. And you can be done. Any more questions, please?
Yes, one more question. When our elders and family members are having expectations on us and be angry and shout, how do we not react to it in the situation but handle the situation?
See, what can be prescribed is a very general prescription. When the elders are shouting at us, which is a very practical situation, we just need to step back and understand why they are shouting. And what is it that we can do or I can do to convert that into an harmonious situation? Because we can't expect them to change their behavior. You cannot change their behavior, right? What you can change is how you are going to react to that, right? Very simple thing, like one person gave me an example. And this example, like when I told about this postponement and, and then emotionally charged. Sometimes we will have this experience that we are very unhappy with something or somebody, and we want to write a letter to them, and we will write a letter immediately with all sorts of complaint and things like that and all, and probably calling names and things like that, and pointing out all the weaknesses of the other person and how he has been unfair, blah 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 blah. Write that letter, but don't mail it, right? Don't mail that letter. Keep it for 24 hours, like they have it in the airport, the cooling period. No, some of the after 24 hours, you read that letter. I can assure you, you will tear that letter. You will just burn it, because you have written that letter in an emotional situation. When you are emotionally balanced, you will find that why should I react like this? And in fact, I tell you, many people have this problem even in Facebook and all that. Something they will see and they will immediately react. And that will create a big argument amongst all the people in the Facebook, right? So the reply is coming, this and that and all. So all you have to do is, even if shouting is coming or all these things are happening, if you create a space within yourself, you react to them in such a way that they are actually what I say, realize that their shouting was not in place, rather, and then the situation did not deserve to be ugly the way you have described. Again, the shouting, you must understand, is to a son, not to you. There is a father who is playing. There is a person who is playing the role of a father. And there is a person who is playing the role of the son. The father is shouting at the son. That person who is shouting is not shouting at you. So these kind of differences, you will have to make those, differentiations. Then you will be able to handle all these situations in a harmonious way. And you will have to create that space. And as I said, try to find harmony. If somebody is shouting at you, how does it matter to you? Let him shout. He will calm down after some time. In fact, you can even tell him that don't shout, please. It will increase your blood pressure. No, whatever you want, we will sit down and talk about it. But what is the need for shouting? There are so many ways, to handle all this. Again, let me warn you, all these things cannot come automatically overnight by listening to one 45 minutes lecture from me. Isn't it? So this has to be practiced. This has to be, done over a period of time. But it can be done.
So Shivaram says, thank you, Ganapati ji. And the explanation of pain and how to distance ourselves was a great revelation. Okay. There's another question which says, other than guided meditation, any other practice from Vedanta you can suggest to mend our mind, Acharya ji?
Well, yeah, guided meditation is only a part of the Vedantic sadhanas, right? Now you have to actually completely change your personality. You have to go into Vedanta, lock, stock, and barrel, right? And for getting into Vedanta, first of all, you must have a certain qualifications. So those qualifications, first you will have to find out whether you have those qualifications. You have to get hold of a guru, a good guru, who knows, who is a Shrotriya, and if not even not a Brahmanishta, at least a Shrotriya guru who has the communication skills to teach you the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita and all. But that's a very long journey. That's a very life changing option, which you will have to consciously opt for. Like I opted for 6-7 years ago. So I am on that path. I am continuing. Not even reached probably 10% or 15% of where I started out, but it's a journey. You have to keep on going. And it never stops. I mean, for example, you cannot, there is so much in the scriptures. There are so many Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, then Adi Shankara's commentary on that. And there are commentaries on Adi Shankara's commentaries. If you want to understand the import of a particular message being conveyed in the Upanishad, you have to probably study 3-4 commentaries to understand what is being conveyed here, right? And the most difficult thing in all these things is what somebody mentioned, all the baggage that we are carrying with us throughout. How to remove that baggage? For that, the Vedantic meditation is called Nididhyasana. In fact, if I go into Vedanta, I will go on explaining. The Vedantic is, there are 3 steps in Vedanta. Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasana. These are the 3 main sadhanas in Vedanta, which takes you to a moksha basically. Moksha is what? Liberation or total freedom. And total freedom from everything, all kind of emotional baggage, all kind of emotional attachment, all kinds of emotional trauma. Totally free from all that. That is what is moksha is. Moksha is not going to some Vaikuntha or Kailasa or some heaven and all that. Vedanta doesn't believe in all those things. So you can have moksha while living itself. It's not that moksha is after death. So you have to, the other option is get into meditation and work through your way out, or get into proper pursuit of spiritual pursuit of Vedanta, understand the messages. In fact, the messages throughout Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita and all is this only. Then you develop a certain attitude of seeing everything in the same way. What Bhagavan Krishna called Samatva Bhava. Everything is the same. Once you understand the logic and also the reasoning behind why you should see everything as the same, whether it's a mosquito or whether it is Bhagavan, God, everything has the same basis, as the same background. Once you understand that, then you automatically reach that state of what I can call it the total freedom or liberation, where then all these issues we are talking about will be irrelevant at that stage. There won't be any emotional baggage, there won't be any emotional trauma or stress or anything. So as I said, these are all steps. How practically we can do it is what I told you. Basically start with creating a space and understanding role play and all that. This is all there. It's all how Vedanta takes you through that entire journey. And this journey for some people could be lifelong rather. And it may go beyond one birth. That's what, suppose you have actually embarked on a spiritual journey in this birth and you have reached certain stage. Arjuna asks Bhagavan Krishna, he asks a specific question. If I undertake this journey, in the spiritual journey towards moksha, and before I actually are able to realize that moksha, I die, then what happens? That means in my next birth, do I start again, set the whole meter to 0 and start again? And Bhagavan Krishna says, no. If you have actually followed this spiritual path in this birth, the next birth you will get will be a human birth. First guarantee Bhagavan gives. Second guarantee he gives is, you will be born in such a family, in such a society, in such circumstances that you will be able to continue this pursuit from where you left off in your previous birth, right? That is why we have, people like Ramana Maharshi and all, who never went to a guru, but they are all realized souls. They are all moksha purushas, mukta purushas. Why? The person asked Ramana Maharshi that Vedanta says that you must go to a guru and learn all these things, but you have never gone to a guru, learned all these things. How did you have all this knowledge of, moksha and all these things? You know what Ramana Maharshi answered? He says, what do you know about my previous janma? You don't know anything about my previous janma. So some of these Mahatmas whom we come across, it is not that in one life you actually achieve all these things. But if you start in this life, there is a guarantee Vedanta gives. In some life you will certainly achieve it. That is there. And the progress will be only, it will be progressive as long as you are, you are careful not to again get led by all your sense organs and all that. So there are so many, prescriptions. When I talked about qualifications, there is this, Shama, Dhamma, Uparama. There are so many qualifications Vedanta prescribes. First acquire all that, Viveka, Vairagyam and all that, and then come to me and understand what I have to say. Without that, Vedanta and all will not make any sense. So that's a whole complete life program there. But for our practical purposes, we can start with this, understand if we are able to, internalize what is there, the message which is given here in this talk, and then start in a small way with certain practices, creating that space, understanding the role play and all. Then certainly you will make progress, and by you will be able to, manage the situations and increasingly live in harmony with everything and everybody around you. I am sorry, it's been quite a long explanation, but
no problem. So we have Katrinji saying, many thanks for good guidance on how to manage everyday stresses and how to accept and distance us from things and situations we cannot change or even own. And then there's one last question, and I think that's from your nephew, Subbu from Kuwait. He says, Hari
not my
Om.
nephew, he is a friend.
Acha, okay.
Yeah.
Hari Om, do you think pranayama is the starting step for meditation?
Yes. Pranayama is the starting step for meditation. In fact, this Anulom Vilom pranayama is a must, because that pranayama actually helps you in bringing concentration to your mind, which is very, very important. And you see, meditation is also part of yoga, yoga shastra, So there they call it samadhi, and then in Vedanta we call it nididhyasana. That's all. There is a slight difference in the mode that is practiced, but the purpose of both is the same. Purpose is to bring your mind, that is what you call the Chitta Naischalyam and Chitta Ekagrata, as they call it, focus your mind. For that, pranayama is a very good practice. Pranayama actually will calm down your mind. It will help you in removing all these external thoughts very, very effectively. But pranayama should be done like pranayama. Not with all the things going in your mind and you mechanically do this business. That is not pranayama. anything for that matter in our life, we do it seriously, it will have its own, it will give its fruits rather. Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ganapati ji.
My
That
pleasure.
was
Thanks
very,
a lot.
very lucid and very easy sort of explanation. A lot of work to do, though, to achieve that harmony with
Yes.
everything around us. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So,
And we will continue this. The other 3 causes which I mentioned, I will talk about them on the 31st. What is it that we can do to tackle those causes? Yeah.
Right. All right. So for everybody else that's here, we have our forthcoming programs are on Sunday, 12th July. We have the yoga program as usual by Umesh Dagachi starting at 7 a.m. And on 14th July, we have Shri Vikram Vishwanathan ji taking on a very important subject called parenting. And Shri Vikram ji is the Consul General of Peru. And here he will be talking in the capacity of a parent as well. He has children that are studying abroad and is very closely associated with them. On 17th July, we have Shri Krishnapani ji talking to us, and we will post the details of all these programs shortly. Thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Ganapati ji, and everybody that's here for your presence and participation from all of us at Ritambara. And we look forward to your presence this week on Sunday and thereafter on 14th and 17th July. With that, we conclude today's session. Thank you very much.
Hari Om.
Namaste.